he's off somewhere, and we should at least got you a pair of sunglasses and a hat to help a little bit.
It seems like the majority of the talk is about setting a record with 5 green, white checkers. And it's like, I don't know if that's something to be proud of or not. It helps some drivers, hurts some drivers, and so some fans liked it and some don't. But at the end of the day, it ends up being a bunch of torn up equipment. But
the crew chiefs always like for them to save fuel, but especially at Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta, where they're running to the stages. But now they're saving fuel sometime to get to a certain distance. It's where they don't have to put as much gas in when they change 4 tires. Chris, you're filling in for Richard today, my son-in-law. I don't know whether you're too proud of that or not. You shouldn't have to be, but he's off somewhere, and we should at least got you a pair of sunglasses and a hat to help a little bit. But I guess we can talk a little bit about the race Sunday. And where was we at? Nashville?
Nashville Super Speedway.
Been a couple of days. And
the big track. The
big track in Nashville, not the old fairground. I don't guess you watched all of it, but you kind of maybe seen the highlights. And you got the Magic Box phone, and you probably read what the fans thought. So tell us what you think.
Yeah, I did. Of course, it seems like the majority of the talk is about setting a record with 5 green, white checkers. Boy. And it's like, I don't know if that's something to be proud of or not. But irregardless, it helps some drivers, hurts some drivers, and so some fans liked it and some don't. But at the end of the day, it ends up being a bunch of torn up equipment. But outside of that, as far as the race, okay, you had a high grip racetrack. Concrete's always really consistent, unlike some asphalt. High grip racetrack, everybody running within a tenth and a half of each other, and just difficult to pass. We see that a lot. We talk about that a lot, but at the end of the day, that's what it was.
Well, I happened to be there, and everything you hit on is true. And then, of course, the rain came through. Pretty bad storm, and of course, I didn't get wet, and I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people took cover, and they got the cars in time. But you're talking about within a tenth of each other. But the 42 and the 43 were terrible to start with. First pit stop, they made a good call made a good change on the 43, and he is right there with the rest of them, just running the same speed, but back in the pack. And then, of course, I guess the 42 was speeding on pit road, got him behind, and he finally got back on the lead lap with a fender missing. The crew chiefs now, from my day and some of yours, they got so much to work with, and I'm sure they was looking for 300 laps. And then all of a sudden, gas mileage got to come into play. And they said, okay, we're good for 1 green, white checker. And then another one, and then it started eliminating the top competitors that had led up front all day, and then they got the good cars got to wrecking each other. And I don't know. I thought last week at New Hampshire that when they waited so long for the rain to try out the rain tires was something different, and this was quite different too. And like you brought up, 5 overtimes. I don't know what sports had that.
Well, that's
if this is a sport.
Back in the day, we thought we was rolling the dice on a fuel mileage race. I was thinking we was going to make it, but at least we knew when the race was going to be over.
Yeah.
Now you don't. So you're really rolling the dice now because you don't know how many green, white checkers or whatever they'll be. So it's way more of a gamble now than it was back then. The upside to that is nowadays with all the driver data, they know exactly how much throttle the driver's using. Obviously, Joey Logano did an outstanding job and managed his fuel and saved fuel and made it happen. And nowadays, at least the guys on the pit box have that information, and they somewhat know where they're at. Where back in the day, our driver could tell us he was saving fuel all day, and we didn't have a clue if he's wide open or not.
No, because we didn't know how much. If they got it full or not, and now they do know where it's full or not. I'm repeating what you're saying, but the crew chiefs always like for them to save fuel, but especially at Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta, where they're running to the stages. But now they're saving fuel sometime to get to a certain distance. It's where they don't have to put as much gas in when they change 4 tires. But you brought up the same thing. The concrete tracks don't change that much with the tires. And then when they have a caution, there's 2 tires, some of them stay out and everything, and that really mixes it up.
Yes, sir.
And then once it gets mixed up like that, and I've got nothing but my stopwatch, I'm mixed up. And that ain't hard to do either. But I guess it was okay race. But as I look at this rundown here, boy, there was some awful good cars that was up front leading and everything that wound up way in the back. And Logano won the race. No, you can't take nothing away from him. They had a race. They had a winner, and he needed a win on account of the playoff situation.
Yeah, you talked about making adjustments, and I'm not even familiar enough with adjustments that they can make on these cars to even discuss it. But obviously, you see it every week. So many people talk about same speed, but it's back to pit strategy and how much fuel you put in, and short stopping. All that still plays into the strategy of today. And another example was, of course, television made a big deal out of Kyle Busch because he was running in the back. He got lapped early, and then lo and behold, he was running 4th right there near the end, and he got caught up in the deal when Larson didn't go out of fuel. But obviously, the 8 team did something to make the car better or make good calls to get him up to 4th after he was lapped in the first stage of the race.
But on the most of the adjustments now, I think, is air pressure, maybe a half a pound or a pound, and we didn't have a gauge that would even read that close from one punch to the next. But they started cutting the motors off and making sure they drew fire, and that's got to be sensitive on the clutch and the starter and the alternator and all that stuff. So it was really something different, probably something we hadn't seen in a long time. And then talking about that, we're going to the streets of Chicago, and I don't guess you're going, are you?
I hope not.
Yeah, I think me and Richard are going up Sunday morning, and we didn't go last year, but they'll be dedicating the big Richard Petty hat again this week, and they want him there for that, and that's the big thing for the 75 years of Petty racing. So I hope you've enjoyed talking about the race today.
I have.
And we've certainly seen something different that we hadn't seen in a long time. But like I repeat myself, they had a race and they had a winner.
Yes, sir. The ones that adjust the best are the ones that deserve to win. No, that's part of the game. It's part of the strategy. Don't take strategy away. In my opinion, they've taken strategy away all through the years with pit road being closed and everybody going to rain tires at the same time. Everybody going back, dictating what everybody does. If you dictate that people can get gas because they're about to run out, then that takes away the opportunity for somebody else's strategy to win the race.
No, I agree with Chris. Last week at New Hampshire, they probably took some of the strategy out for people when they made them go the rain tires and no man. It was back in NASCAR's hand there, and this week they didn't do that. So, yeah.
Well, that's a timeline question because Dale can certainly go back to and I'll let Dale talk about it, but he can certainly go back to 1981 when they went downsized cars. That was probably the biggest change outside of this going to the next gen car ever. But I went through some make and model changes between the 95 Pontiac and the 96 Pontiac. We went through it from Oldsmobile to Chevrolet once, and of course, went through it a couple of times at Richard Childress's with Chevrolet models from Monte Carlos to SS's and so forth. And really in the latter days, with the wind tunnel development we had and all the wind tunnel time and aerodynamicist engineering, it wasn't that big a deal. But back in the day when you went to the racetrack without ever taking your car to the wind tunnel, the racetrack was your wind tunnel, and as I used to say, the big black racetrack big black wind tunnel doesn't lie, and that was the deal then, is you just unloaded and didn't have a clue what you had. But after the wind tunnel era came along, you always kind of had an educated guess of what you had.
Yeah, well, we changed from Chevrolet to Toyota this year, and really it's not that big a deal because NASCAR controls most of it. But the biggest change I ever been through, and it happened in the middle of the season, it was in 1978 when we finally had to give up on the Dodge, which had front torsion bars and lead springs in the rear, to a Chevrolet with 4-coil springs. Now, if you think that wasn't a change.
Yeah, that was huge.
And that's the biggest one I went through. We adapted with the 81 change, downsized cars pretty good.
Never. I ran out every time.
Okay. We're at Daytona in 81, and Bobby had the Le Mans Pontiac, had everybody outclassed, and on Richard's last pit stop, we only gassed. Kindly stole the race. And we had figured the gas mileage off of him drafting, and then when we got him out front, he had to run wide open. And he didn't tell me maybe for a year after, as he approached the checkered flag, it ran out of gas. And so that's about as close as you can get. I don't particularly like them because when they're supposed to run 300 laps, that's it. But if they're going to run 400 laps, they shouldn't control it. Just let it be, you know. And they've created something, so they got to let it take its course.
Yeah, you know, as I said earlier, I disagree with it just because it always seems to result in a lot of carnage and wrecked race cars. Unfortunately, hadn't been a lot of injuries due to it, but that's always been my concern. It's just the safety and the tearing up race cars, because you just create a model to go for it. And you know, but like I said, if that's what the fans want, if 5 overtimes makes them want to buy a ticket to the next Nashville race, then so be it.